hadn't meant to find myself at Saint Sebastian, a small, nearly forgotten church tucked within a narrow, winding alley. My reason for being in Paris was singular: to acquire a rare folio for a wealthy client. A book so unsettling its previous owner claimed it whispered in the dark. With the deal concluded and the folio safely shipped away, I was simply wandering, trying to shed the lingering disquiet of its strange, glyph-marked pages. It was the air itself that drew me in, thick with an incense that carried the scent of dry paper and ozone, overlaid with a sharp, metallic tang like old blood on silver. A scent that promised not just forgotten histories, but histories that were meant to be forgotten. Almost unconsciously I entered, taking a seat. The air was heavy with candle smoke and the scent of damp wool from the coats of anonymous strangers. Beside me, an elderly woman murmured prayers so quietly they might have been secrets. Further along the pew, a child fidgeted restlessly until a firm parental hush silenced him. At the far end of the nave, a lone acolyte tended to a swinging censer, its silver body catching the candlelight as it moved in a hypnotic arc. I remained amidst the flickering candlelight and bowed heads, enveloped by the rhythmic sway of the censer, incense threading like forgotten memories, the pew creaking beneath my weight. Then the rhythm broke. The censer, which had been swinging in a gentle, predictable arc, suddenly stopped dead at its apex. It hung there for a heartbeat too long, a silver pendulum defying gravity, before beginning a new, erratic swing. The smoke that now coiled from it was no longer placid. It seemed to vibrate, to thrum with a silent, resonant pressure that I felt in my teeth. A tremor ran through the very stone of the floor, as if from a deep, unheard chord. I turned, confusion mingling with a first hint of dread, and saw him, the acolyte, solitary in his black cassock. His head was cocked at a deeply unnatural angle, as if listening intently to the silent pressure, his attention fixed on the censer. His pale fingers were not touching it, but held above as if conducting its impossible dance. I rose hastily, stumbling down the aisle, my boots echoing ominously across the stone floor. That silent pressure pursued me relentlessly, growing stronger with each step until it felt like a physical blow against my temples, a vibration that threatened to shatter the bones of my skull from within. The stained glass quivered above, its lead seams straining desperately to confine the saints depicted therein. Bursting outside, Paris met me with a storm of icy needles, rain glistening on cobblestones illuminated by blurred lamplight. A carriage clattered past, horses' hooves striking sparks, a long, haunting neigh resonating against shadowed buildings. But beneath it all was that vibration, a pressure in my ears, a hum felt deep in the bone. Behind me came footsteps, initially soft, then louder, shifting from boots to hooves, claws perhaps. I dared not look. I fled down deserted streets, past closed cafes and darkened doorways. Rain transformed to icy pellets, striking iron balconies harshly. I fell once, palms scraping stone, and upon rising glimpsed the black robe vanishing into an alley, eyes reflecting a chilling, unblinking glint. Each corner revealed him again, shifting unpredictably ahead, behind, or awaiting silently in doorways that slammed shut at my approach. Dim windows above watched me pass, their reflections blinking rhythmically, matching my frantic heartbeat. As I passed a darkened shop window, my own frantic breathing seemed to echo back at me. But for a split second, it was layered with a second sound, a dry, rasping whisper, as if from ancient paper. Why was this happening? What forgotten link had I disturbed? The streets twisted impossibly. My gaze fell upon the wet cobblestones, and for a heart-stopping moment, the random patterns seemed to coalesce, a spiraling three-armed glyph that burned itself into my mind before dissolving back into meaningless stone. A symbol from the folio, a flash of memory, the book's opening illustration, a bleak landscape beneath two suns. This madness wasn't random. It had been bound in the very pages I had held. The disquiet I'd felt from the book was now a torrent unleashed upon the city. Church bells rang distantly, but backwards, accelerating into disorienting cacophony as streets twisted inward. My lungs burned, heart staggering irregularly beneath the crescendo of iron voices, overwhelming my footsteps. The streets offered no sanctuary, cafes bolted shut, windows weeping candlelight like sorrowful wounds. The realization struck bitterly. I carried this court within me. Every route merely returned me deeper within its maze. Finally, turning a corner revealed the church once more. Saint Sebastian, hunched beneath rain like an inadequate grave. The name, whispered in the folio's margins, now screamed in my mind. The King in Yellow. And I knew then that this was not a hunt, but a summons. The rain intensified, no longer needles, but a solid drowning sheet. The impossible angles of the streets began to work against me, every gutter and warped cobblestone channeling the deluge into a single, rising torrent that swirled around my ankles, then my knees. There was no escape. The alleys became waterfalls, the main street a river pulling me down. The water was impossibly cold, and as it closed over my head, the last thing I saw was the faint, mocking glint of the three-armed glyph beneath the churning surface. My lungs burned, and then, nothing. I awoke with a jolt, gasping for air that wasn't there, finding myself not on the flooded street but back in the pew, soaked to the bone, my heart hammering against my ribs. Within, pews waited, and so did he, or it, hunched over the censer, which now spun like a dervish, spraying sparks of cold, white light. The silent vibrations surged, becoming a physical force, rattling the very foundations of the church. The nave trembled, glass bowing inward ominously. Within my mind, something fractured, perhaps the last vestige of reason. I understood then the futility of escape. The court's dominion extended everywhere. The dragon's silence persisted, a resonant hum that was the underpinning of all creation. And when the final vibration reached its crescendo, the walls splintered apart, pews shattering like brittle bones, stone fragments cracking loose to hurtle outward into the void. The glass exploded in a rush of cold air that sucked the breath from my throat, reality peeling away to reveal a vast hall of drifting stars, wheeling and splitting like relentless eyes that never close. Mirrored lakes reflecting constellations that shift and flicker in ceaseless flux. Strange moons, drifting idly among impossible fiery shapes, etched in burning lines across a sky abandoned by the sinking twin suns. Towers, like black spines, broke the horizon, and upon a throne of shadow and gold sat the King in Yellow, watching silently. The court of the dragon was no mere church, but a breach, and I was now fully through it. The silent hum still rising, as the King in Yellow slowly lifted his mask and the roaring stars and moons leaned down to watch me drown in their luminous gaze. And I knew then, as I vanished into the roar, that I was not a visitor to Carcosa, but was at last returning.
You've reached the end of the signal. If the story held you, stay with us. Like and subscribe, it really does help. There are more corridors ahead, more transmissions waiting to be heard. Thank you for listening.